You got to use your full skill and capacity to present.
Absolutely, because artist is the product is living in your brain. So when you grow, the whole thing grow, your work grow, your portfolio grow.
The same concept playing out of enjoy the journey that leads to the success. Like, don't focus on just the final product, right? You just focus on the part that gets you there, that you're good at. And
now this group of people, younger generation, is coming back to embrace more. So the nostalgia is big. The 90s fashion is big because people are missing those human connection, those human design clothes, human design, really super cool visual product.
What's up, everybody? Today, I have a special guest here in the Bay Area. His name is Nien-Ken, and he is an editorial and advertising illustrator based in San Francisco. So we're going to talk about living in San Francisco. We're going to talk about the Bay Area. We're also going to talk about his creative side. And we're going to talk about some of the past work he's done and what it takes to put out a really creative piece of illustration or art or anything to grab attention, which is an important topic because there's all these softwares and everybody's going on Instagram, etc. So Nien-Ken, thank you for coming here. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. And it's truly my honor and pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Simon. This is so exciting. And this is my first podcast. And I'm so glad to be here just to share a little experience of myself and just talk and chat and connect with you. It's awesome.
This is going to be wonderful. Thank you for dedicating the time. Let's first talk about the Bay Area. Okay. How long have you lived out here? And what do you enjoy about the Bay Area? What are some of the highlights and things that have changed recently?
I think I live in San Francisco since 2011, and it's been 13 years now. So I've always been living in the city. I connect with the city a lot because there's so many Asian community, and I'm Taiwanese. And so like a lot of like Chinese culture like connected to it, and I also can have a lot of creative side in the city because a lot of the company was living there. And just I grew up in the city in Taiwan, so like this is the perfect place with my culture, with American culture, and just to live in a big city and enjoy the creative people. And also went to school there, so a lot of my connection.
What school did you?
Academy of Art.
Oh yeah, it's a very right there on 2nd Street or right by there.
Yeah, there are a lot of buildings.
Oh, there's a lot of different
across the city. So
the only one that's sad to say that I remember is by Gold's Club. Right
that's
around
right.
The corner. That's bad. Guys, that's bad.
Yeah. We actually have like a group of students just went there for actually have lunch deal for people over 18.
I know
that is so crazy.
Okay, guys, Gold's Club is a strip club that has one of the best lunches out there.
Yeah,
and that's why I know it.
Yeah.
Because of the lunch.
Yeah, so, I've just been here for a long time, enjoyed the scene, and ever since that, like, my partner and I, we just dwelt here, and ever since, and I still enjoy San Francisco so far.
So San Francisco is a beautiful city. I will pick some things that have happened recently. It's gotten really dirty, and I think you would agree with me in some regard. Yeah. Safety. Yeah. It has its challenges, but overall, it's a where else can you enjoy culture, enjoy being yourself, enjoy the freedoms, and really when the sun is out, and there's so much to do. Like it's a vibrant city. You're 1 hour outside of Napa. You could go to North Bay, East Bay. You could go to Tahoe. You got so much. It's incredible, right? Would you agree?
Totally agree. I think it's sadly like after during pandemic and post pandemic that you can see the safety and the things totally changed. But there are so many different neighborhoods really popped out, like the local restaurants and people as more boutique shop around different neighborhood really opened up, and that looks really nice. I like this local scenes and everybody just bring together and like more small business and more small like coffee shops, small restaurant is actually being more vibrant. So I enjoy that part of the city right now. And also, like you say, the city is several hours away from nature. You can enjoy wine and go down to, Silicon Valley to do networking and talk to people creatively, or like even startup and stuff. So I think
and there's a lot of startups, even though some have left or companies have moved their location for headquarters for tax benefits, which I think California, if it's smart, it would change its tax code to get even more companies to come in.
Completely agree. Yeah.
You know, like why have the companies leave? It doesn't make sense. And tax something else, right? Like that, you could totally always do that. But also, let's get back to the Asian community, big Asian community here.
Totally.
I think the Asian community in the Bay Area has upheld the Bay Area, in my opinion. It's not only in real estate, safety, and some of the other things. I think if we didn't have this big Asian community in the Bay Area, I think the Bay Area would be far off from, or far worse, I should say, than where it's at. Because, you know, you guys contribute so much, not only from the restaurant scene, but real estate, businesses, and so forth. And I think that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your profession. You're an editorial and advertising illustrator. Yeah. What is that?
So illustrator is a commercial artist. I create art. I do art for clients who want me to fulfill their brand identity, or for publication for magazine and newspaper who want a strong visual to go complement for their articles so they can generate more interest for their readers. So you don't really open up a newspaper or a magazine only full of text. It's kind of boring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So normally the publication will hire artists to actually visually to enhance the whole reader's experience. So they will reach out to artists to do editorial stuff, or like for advertising, they would do like branding. Like Spotify will hire artists for people to paint over their office mural to make their working experience more vibrant internally. So it really it's across the whole spectrum of industry. Like people hire artists to do all kind of stuff, just like designer, just like every single creative in the industry. So illustrator is normally singly put just a commercial artist who fulfill that visual need of clients.
Yeah, to tell a story, so to speak, and engage.
Absolutely.
How hard is it to engage the audience through illustration? Like, what's some advice or some of the highlights or some of the things that when you're creating something illustrative, you have to incorporate to engage that audience?
I think for me I would really strong, like artist needs to have a really strong style, which is like when you see this piece of artwork, you will know this piece of artwork was linked to certain artists. That's the main attraction for clients to hire you. And that's the main attraction for the audience to connect with you. All artists need to have a really strong and unique style that really identify as themselves, that generate the interest. Because when people see this, just for example, when you hear some certain pop song, you link to that certain artist because there's a certain lyrics, certain style, certain tone they sing, same as artists. When you see that, they have certain way portrayed light and shadows, the way they construct their characters and construct the narrative of this visual. So when the audience see this, that's the main attraction, is the unique style that the artists have.
So you're creating almost, you mentioned it earlier, a brand identity through that, and that carries over. I mean, I'm sure you could take a Coca-Cola bottle and take the label off and people think it's a Coca-Cola bottle. Is that kind of the same line? Yeah,
it's kind of the same line. So it's really, you fulfill what for example, the Coca-Cola, right? Like they want you to use red and white color scheme to illustrate a polar bear for the holiday season. So I'll use my unique style to create this subject matter and come out with what they're looking for the campaign, for the certain campaign.
And why did you get into, illustration or in this field? Like when you grew up, or what did people in the Asian community goes, my son has to be a doctor, or there has to be a lawyer, or, you probably felt that pressure, or an accountant or something, where, it's why illustration?
So luckily my family just let me do whatever I want growing up. Okay. And my brother and I were always a big comic book fans. So we always reading Japanese manga, all different type of graphic books. So I always loved to draw. So that really just fueled me up. Like I didn't know I want to be an artist like professionally, but like sort of going through schools, I always enjoy anything creative, like art classes. I get more serious in high school. I take multiple painting classes and drawing classes, and and there's several teachers really encouraged me. It's like, hey, you got the things, and you're very passionate. You study harder than everybody in art classes. You really like it. Why not go through this route? So when I actually in high school was like, okay, let's apply for art school. When I got to art school, it's like, this could be a career. And ever since that, and I just keep pushing and pushing, learning the craft, getting to know the people and getting to know the industry. And now here I am and doing it professionally.
That's awesome. And when you do it professionally, do you do it as a freelancer or do you do it for a company particularly? Like if someone's coming out of art school and they're excellent at what they do with illustration and graphic design, what should they look for a job? Is it better to be a freelancer? What are you doing?
That's such a great question because when we think of Illustrator, there's only like certain type. You think of artists, like artists doing their own stuff, but for Illustrator, there's a several category. For me, I go through freelancing, so I take projects from clients, from newspaper, magazine, and different companies, branding, and there's a different type of illustrator. It's called concept artist. It's a full-time job. They got hired by the game company, TV company, or like entertainment industry. What they do is they do storyboard. So before the movie, like for example, a certain Marvel movie, they will hire these concept artists to storyboard the whole things across the whole spectrum. So
to see if it makes sense.
That's right. They base on the storyboard to cut frame how they move the camera. So that's the thing. And the other one will be children's book. Children's book is who do more, they work with publisher, they could write their own children's book, or they illustrate working with writers and come out of books. So that would be the three biggest
industries. Would you say the video game industry is the biggest of the three, or would you say
I would say the most stable for the artist, because freelance, I think for me, freelancer, the biggest problem is the stability. Your income is based on the size of the project, the consistency of the project. But for the concept artist, it's a full-time job.
It's a guaranteed pay.
That's right.
Versus your pay, it's kind of it's almost like a real estate agent, right? You could have one house sell, and then you could have no more houses coming on the market.
Yes.
And in your case, obviously, the interest rate is not beating you down you would know about that too.
Yeah.
We're all in the Bay Area. We know real estate.
Yeah.
So freelancing, guys, it's rewarding because you kind of can work on your own time. You could be as creative as you are, but at the same time, your paycheck comes and ends, and then your next paycheck will come if you get another gig, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So that's kind of scary as well, because you still have bills and you still have things that you want and dinners. And by the way, have you seen how much it costs to eat out now in the Bay Area?
God. I just ordered a burrito that costs $22 in Mission District. It's insane.
I used to get a burrito for $5 at Gordo's in San Francisco, which I would say has some of the best burritos.
Yeah.
Challenged, of course, but $22.
$22.
What did you eat that burrito going? What the hell's happening here?
I paid, and I just stand there shocked. It's like, excuse me, did you just say $22? But it's too bad. Too late.
Too late. You gotta eat it. You don't want to throw it away. Jesus, those are my favorite. I was thinking the other day. I was like, if I could only have one food for the rest of my life that I know would keep me going, it's probably eggs and a burrito, and that's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Get back to some of your projects. You've mentioned you've worked on some newspapers. I see some highlights of New York Times. There's Visa credit card. There's the Hollywood Reporter, the Washington Post. Tell me about some of these projects and how you were able to acquire them for any freelancers out there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a freelancing artist. It could be freelance, like you had to lock down a contract, which is a skill set for any type of freelance work. Yeah. So how did you manage that?
So first, when I'm talking about freelance artists, you're not just creating things, you are a business owner. This is a thing school doesn't taught you. School actually teach you all the skills to, how to draw things realistically, how to develop your style. But when you start freelancing, getting out of the school, you're owning the business, right? Like you need to do your promotion, you need to do your admin, you do your, contract negotiation. You need to know the laws and the copyright stuff. So for me, after I got out of school, I didn't go freelancing full time. I started getting a job. I started building my connection and building, to know people in the industry, whether it's art director, editor, or different people like working in all kind of industry, just to know how people work before I can jump on freelance. I don't want to just toss myself into the water and don't know how to swim, right?
Sure.
So when I started freelancing, the first client I was looking for an agent, and I got an illustration agent. So the illustration agent is the person who did all that admin stuff, promotion, contract negotiation, and the billing. So for me, I only need to really focus on creating. But I guess I'm lucky because a lot of agency doesn't really take a freelancer right out of like such a fresh out of school. But sometimes it's just partially is luck. Partially is your portfolio is consistent enough and professional enough and adequate enough for them to take you on. So I would say for any artist who just got out of school, like really to get in industry, to get a job, full-time job, part-time job, doesn't matter. What kind of industry doesn't matter. What really matters is enhance your live experience, because I believe when artists not having enough live and work experience, not to know people enough, like your work is static into that student level, and you won't establish yourself into a professional, an artist, and your work won't grow. So for your question, like those projects I was so lucky to get an agent and who actually approve of my hard work, approve of my skill, and approve of my previous like very little work experience. And I started learning with them. I started learning with the client, communicating with that, and just a lot of things is like, because artists is the thing is the product is living in your brain. So when you grow, the whole thing grow, your work grow, your portfolio grow. So you see that stuff. So getting those clients, I would say, is a second step for your career goal as an artist. It's always putting back yourself to look at yourself as like, am I growing this year? Am I having a better communication skill? Am I living better as a person, my health, everything? Because that's gonna really reflect into your work and really grow your career. So I will say those projects, it's secondary, because when you grow all this stuff, the client came. Yeah,
they come. And then you learn from the clients and what they like, and then they refer, and the positive energy and your growth, it just leads to more. That's excellent point. Out of those projects, what was your most favorite, or like what do you remember being challenging or favorite, whatever you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think the one I most did with the New York Times is just really fun. I never worked with them before until last year. Just out of nowhere, the art director just called me through phone. I was like, now at the age that barely any client call you, they always email, and I just pick up the phone and say, oh my God, it's 212, it's from New York City. I better pick it up.
Is this a spam call?
Yeah, I was like, well, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna pick it up. He's like, oh hey, I'm this person from the New York Times. I follow you for a long time, and they want to work with me. I'm like, oh my God, it's the Times, and I better get myself, whip on myself and tighten up and focus. And they literally just give me the email, give me the brief. It's like, go at it. And I was like, okay, like that's it? Because normally a lot of a client will have a really, descriptive briefs and stuff, create a brief for you to follow, and what kind of character, what kind of dimension. And they'll be like, it's kind of like this, go for it. And it's the freedom I enjoyed so much. And the outcome, because of those freedom, I worked so well with, nobody nagging at me. And it came out so great. So that is one of the memorable projects so far.
You got to use your full skill and capacity to present.
Absolutely.
When you presented, were they blown away? Were they super happy? Was it aligned with their vision, or did they also make changes, or how did it go?
No, luckily there's no changes along the process.
You nailed it.
Yeah, I nailed it, and they just like, this is great. We're gonna publish it in 2 days, and that's it. And
that's awesome.
It's done.
Good for you. Good for you. In this challenging space, right? Because I would imagine now with your type of work, there's so much freelance work abroad, and there's so much freelance work in different countries and different states and cities and so forth, and the way the internet's taken over. Do you feel that this is a challenge for you to get further work, or are you so confident in your work and your pitch that this doesn't bother you? Or are these companies simply looking for the top talent? I mean, they have pocketbooks. They're not, you know, they're not maybe nickel and diming anyone. They want to deliver a big product.
Yeah, so I think internet is great stuff. I have clients around the globe.
Okay, so it helps you.
It helps me. Like, I don't have any limitation of geographic. So, but the thing is, like, Illustrator is right now, such a saturated industry. Like, every year there is thousands or tens of thousands of like art student graduated competing. So for me, it's like you always need to go back and focus on yourself. And if you focus on the competition, you're not creating great work. You know, the artist's not creating great work. They fall into this comparing mind state and not growing and stopping and always feeling anxious and stressed out. That is completely not helpful for anything. So for me, it's like I did have go through that kind of state for several years because it's anxious. You know, like people competing. You have this. I have this recurring clients, and suddenly just say, "Hey, we want to change the tone of this column, so we're going to hire somebody else, or we're going to go maybe for photography or different kind of creative medium." And I'll be like, okay, like this is how it works. But for artists, it's always very anxiety driven because you don't know who's going to be after you and it will be replace you. You know, use the word replace. So you're always trying to focus and grow, but by thinking of growing doesn't help growing. You just need to come back for yourself, you know. Take a breath, live your life, do your own thing, and enjoy the process. I can't address how important enjoying the whole process of your career will bring so much growth and so much fruitful results into our career, especially artists. And so
it seems like, sorry to interrupt you there, Nien.
Yeah.
It seems like it's kind of the same concept playing out of enjoy the journey. Absolutely. That leads to the success. Like, don't focus on just the final product, right? Yeah. You just focus on the part that gets you there, that you're good at. And it's very similar to any type of training or sports event or any where you have to perform. Yeah. You focus on the performance, people are going to clap later, right? So to speak. But as far as the challenges, like how, if someone does come in, and that's probably happened to you where someone else has come in and taken over a project, do you consider that a failure, or do you consider that as an adjustment period, like for you? Because I assume you don't want someone else to come in to take over a project, right? Yeah.
So if someone came in to take over a project, it's totally on the client's decision, and there's nothing I can do. I think the only thing I can do is, you know, move on. Yeah. Because, for example, if I'm working on an advertising project, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars. They pay you for this global campaign. But suddenly maybe they haven't signed a contract, and maybe before the campaign kick off the production, and they start saying, oh, we might want to look for a different direction. And there's completely out of my control. Yeah. You know, like it's not about I keep calling the client or I keep emailing and say, hey, I really want to work with you. But if the vision changed and they go through they go to our other artists, or let's say photographer, or even right now they're using AI, and that is totally outside of my control. So for me, it's like I don't want myself to, you know, keep falling back to chase the things that is not going to be decided by myself.
So that's a great point that Nien-Ken brings up, is control what you can control. If you can't control a situation, obviously it's not your fault. You can't do it. And oftentimes that could be mid-contract, that could be pre-contract, and even after contract. I mean, I've been in business. You're a freelancer. Technically, you're your own business. And, you know, sometimes people are not going to be happy, and you could control what you could control. When you take on a project, what's your what's your kind of process to take on a project, or what would you recommend to a freelance artist out there? How do you evaluate the amount of time, the amount of effort it's going to take, the amount of creativity into a project, and then quote it?
Yeah. So for the quotation, like there's a book. It's called, I can't really remember the full. It's really long name. It's called I think it's an Artist and Designer Graphic Guild book. There's a bunch of pricing stuff. It's a really thick book, like a textbook. Go through it. There's a different type of strategy on contract, pricing, and based on different kind of industry, based on different kind of project. But for me right now, because I work for several clients before, so I know what my pricing are and my time. And also evaluating what kind of medium. For me, I'm using digital, so I don't have any cost for buying paints or buying pencils. So for me,
expenses are low.
That's right. My cost is very low. So I can still quote client for this amount of money and still get maybe the full amount, and maybe sometimes I get bigger, exchange back from that. So it really depends. And for my process, is like I start with pencil, just sketch out the ideas and the thumbnails, and based on what clients want in their vision, and just go through it, have sketches for them to be approved and color rough for them to be approved. Once it's approved, I go into the final. And that says that normally in editorial, one image take me 3 to 4 days.
Oh, wow.
And that could be only a couple of hundreds. So it depends on the client. So editorial tends to be a really tight deadline, but a very frequent, but smaller budget. For advertising, it's a huge campaign. So I normally work with an marketing or creative agency.
Like a CMO or something.
That's right. And they work with the brand. So I'd never really talk to the actual brand itself.
Oh, wow.
I'm working with the marketing or creative agency to create the visuals.
The middle. So they Coca-Cola hires a marketing agency goes to someone like you who specializes in some sort of art or creativity.
That's right.
And then they make sure that you're hitting it on the head, and you're making sure that you are to get more referrals from that marketing agency. That's I would imagine. Yeah. So is it important for an artist such as yourself to build up a good relationship with these marketing agencies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Networking, it's
key.
So big. Okay. You start a business in any type of industry, knowing people, no matter is the student just graduating school, anyone, art related or not, know them, talk to them, be interesting, know their story, be friend. Doesn't have to be friend, or just build this, hey, I want to grab a coffee with you. Like, I'm interested in what you're doing. Just talk to them, and that will help the career massively.
I agree. It's something I need to get better at. In terms of industries of challenge for marketing, what are the most challenging types of industries to do creative design for? Or what type of design is the most challenging, I should say, to sell a brand? I mean, I guess we could come back to the Coca-Cola one. We know the brand. We know, even I'm not a creative designer, but I could conceptually visualize a red Santa or so forth. But has there been an industry or a type of project where you're like, oh, I really should research this, or this is kind of challenging? Yeah,
I was actually illustrating an app. So the creative agency is getting this client is talking, they want to have this app for the farmer, for the wheat farmer, to go through how they can get rid of the pesticide, when was the best time to sow, to harvest. So it's all about this farming industry. I have no idea how to do. And the things that they want me to illustrate all this background and little character to help this farmer using the iPad to go through this journey about when is the best time to do, if they want to use pesticide, or if they want to sow, or when do you want to harvest. I have no idea. So I need to really have that conversation with this creative agent and just like, hey, how does this work? Do you have any reference? Do you have any website and any article tasks for me to actually understanding how does this machine work? How does it move? And how does the farm, if the barn has to be certain type of the way in Canada or in America, And she was just like, yeah, let me go through this. I'll go through an assistant will put onto the kit for you to actually read on. So a lot of things that before I sketch stuff, I really need to know what type of product I'm going to.
So you literally almost had a crash course on farming wheat.
Yes. And it's so interesting. I have no idea. I've learned so much just drawing farmer, drawing machine, drawing wheat, and they're growing different, their ages, like how they grow as a sprout to the actual weed itself, and what type of parasite is actually affecting them, and the different bacterial I need to draw about it. And it was really interesting.
How long did that project take?
That project take about 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's fully, I told my agent at the time I want to block all like the smaller project because this is a bigger one.
Yeah,
I want to just focus full time on.
But it was the most rewarding pay one too, because it's so detailed and in depth. I would imagine.
It was.
When you do these designs now with AI becoming such a thing, like I'm seeing on Instagram, and this is how we found you on Instagram, obviously, and on Instagram there's constantly advertising up for it, but AI is entering the creative design space with Google, with a lot of companies. Are you worried about that, or are you using that to your advantage?
I'm worried.
Okay.
Because, oh my God, this is such a hot topic.
It
has been a huge topic in the artist industry. There's so many, arguments about it. But for me, I'm speaking for myself.
Sure.
I'm worried about AI because it's removing humanity.
Agree.
I'm not saying removing humanity as laboring, but removing the humanity as doing art. Because, Simon, when you think of when you're as a kid, when you start drawing, creating something, that experience of being satisfied, confidence, and spiritual connected to it it's nothing can replace those, and it will forever ingrain into your brain and carry it so many years throughout when you grow up. So for me, for development, yes. So when people will toss this argument, it's like, look at a camera. When camera came in, as artists, do they starve? And then artists was freaking out at the time too, saying camera is going to replace us. But camera is different because camera is capturing a moment. But artists, I'm guessing it might replace an artist who paint and draw hyper realistically, right? But for most of the artists, they have their own style. It's abstract and everything, and it's different. So it won't completely replace this group of my industry because it's a different tool. It's a completely different tool, like come out with different result. But for AI for me, my opinion is that it strip the process itself just by typing things. But for me, it's like when you enter the keyword, let's say Spider-Man, male, in a cave. For me, that is a creative brief from clients, right? They give me these 3 keywords. Yeah. I need to translate through my brain. Yeah. What type is it wearing blue? Is it wearing green? What type of cave? What type of male is it? Is it a lean body? Is it like bigger one? What kind of me translating personally? It's very spiritual, very humanity centric. But when we remove all this, we only come out with idea with some keyword and result. I'm afraid the art will be so still, and art will be so used simply.
It's almost like a diluted, cold result.
Yes,
I feel like, right?
And people can really tell, and it gets really. I hate to use the word cheap, but it does give that really. Not connecting way of the art, because art is all about connection and humanity. And
I totally agree. I think it takes away from the biggest part, I would say, from what I got from what you're saying is it takes away from the development of the individual. Yeah. That creative art side of the individual. Not to mention the art galleries and the wine events and so forth. No one, it just takes the human out of something beautiful that you create, right? Would you agree? And
totally.
And
I'm not anti-AI. I think I love AI. I learned, ChatGPT and everything. I love it. But for art, I just like there's a certain usage of AI. Definitely they will enhance to make the image easier and more grand and more grandiose. But if it completely remove the humanity side, I'm worried about that part.
I agree. I mean, just imagine it. Our kids are going to grow up drawing something, doodling something cute, and showing their parents or whatever, and having that euphoric feeling of someone congratulating you, or telling the child that, hey, good job, this sun looks great, or whatever it may be from that stage. Or are they just going to sit there on a computer and type, draw me a sun, and be very robotic like when it comes out, right? Yeah. The thing with AI, and the reason I mention it's entering your space quite rapidly with Canva, with, before Photoshop was a big thing, and now it seems like Canva's kind of taking over some of this quick distribution of editorial stuff, or even some pictures. And we're using, I noticed even for our stuff, more Canva than Photoshop. Before I had people that knew Photoshop and Illustrator. Right. And I'm not saying, on my level of what we do, I'm not at that level of, Coca-Cola or Editorial or this or that. So Canva's been great, but I do worry about AI as a general for multiple jobs. I think it's going to be, we're lucky to be born around the time that we are, but in 20 years, cars are going to drive themselves. Computers are going to generate pictures. And, my brother-in-law, for example, he went into radiology. Okay. And now AI is coming into radiology. Really? Wow. Yeah. So can a person detect someone's scan, right? Or can a computer detect a possible problem, right? A little bit better than a person that may not be paying attention. But all of that leads to a societal struggle where who's gonna compete, and I worry about that. And I'm glad you brought it up, but I think you brought up the best point, Nien-Ken, and that point is the development of an individual is going to be of question for their creative side. For sure. And imagine this, man. You and I go to a wine event at an art gallery, and nothing is done by any person to talk about it. There's you're like, what's the point? Yeah, why am I here? Just give me the wine. There's some ChatGPT robot answering your questions. That's right. It's weird, and I bet it's gonna come out. That's the weird part. Yeah. So Simon, this is what differentiate artists. You don't. For me, art is about telling the story. Have that human personal side, telling the story through visuals. So when you only just produce a photocopy of something, it's beautiful. It shows you have great techniques. Shows you paint and draw thousands of stuff based on realistic things. But when you're not telling the story through your art, people can see it. Yeah. So oftentimes AI art is so easy to tell is because it's beautiful, but it's lack of that, Yeah. There's no substance. I mean, I won't say it's not no substance. Sorry. But it's that story, that side of it. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It could be working for a banner or whatever, a poster, but it's not done by a human, and the human interaction is immediately disconnected. And I should say lack of substance. Thank you for telling me that. But I think you're right. The human interaction disconnects from the storyline to engage another human. Yeah. That's a big one, right? You're not engaging an AI. You're engaging a team of humans, and you're engaging the buyers. That's right. Eventually, or the readers, and they're human. They are human, definitely. So if it's, so there's a disconnect, is what you were saying. All right, let's talk about the future of art and where you see it going. And obviously, AI is part of it, no matter what you and I say. Yeah. Where do you see the future of art and illustration and storytelling going? I really think people are coming back to embrace this human quality. You see so many, the younger generation is focusing more on, secondhand stuff. So people want human connection. I think technology at this point, it will keep advancing. But now this group of people, younger generation, is coming back to embrace more. So the nostalgia is big. The 90s fashion is big because people are missing those human connection, those human design clothes, human design, really super cool visual product. I think same as art, right? We will see AI. For me, my prediction will be AI art will be widely used for a while, but people will come back. I still want to work with this certain artist because he or she or they are so cool. Nailed it. And
I want to collaborate with it because it's AI. We know they can generate the same thing, but is that human connection, bring back the connection, is that thing, people will always come back for more humanity. No matter how advanced our technology will keep going or affect as many industries as they can.
Yeah.
But I believe people as a human, we want that spiritual connection will always come back. And
The spiritual connection and the disconnect, I think, will always be there with AI.
Yeah.
And I also don't see, and although, companies now do this where they use AI to submit a project or submit something, or someone working at a company, but someone big like New York Times or Visa or the Hollywood Reporter or Apple, I don't see someone on the higher level going, just print it out in AI and let's launch this mega $1 million campaign, right? They want someone.
They want something unique. It spoke for their campaigns. For sure.
I always think that maybe for the ma and pa or a small business, the AI tool will make things faster, get something published or get out there, and it may not be perfect, but for a company that is really relying on, $100 to $500 million in revenue on a particular product launch, they're not going to wing it.
For sure, I think there's a uniqueness. They invest so many monies and they want something really just for them.
Let me ask you: Have these companies got, say, let's say they're launching a product? Have you ever seen or heard of? They'll hire 3 freelance designers and pick the best one from the 3. Does that happen, or do they normally just focus?
I'd never really experienced it. I think if I get picked, I bet those companies will have a wide band of candidates to pick through for the campaigns, but I never really.
You don't know. Maybe.
I don't know, and I don't ask. It's well, you pick me, great. I'll work with you.
You're happy to have the job. I got you. In terms of your. Art is, first of all, Academy of Art's an expensive school, right? To go through. It is. So are you still paying off loans, and then
I'm so lucky and privileged. My family helped me throughout the school.
Oh, that's nice of them.
Yes.
Okay. Thank God.
Yeah,
So you owe them forever.
Yes.
Typically, what does Academy of Art cost? I'm curious. It's like 50, 60 a year, or is it more?
No, it's actually the cheapest art school I researched throughout the nation. For me, it's like 35.
Oh, 35
per year.
I hear that schools are so expensive nowadays, and there's always this question of, is it worth it? In your case, obviously, you're learning a certain skill.
Yeah.
Okay, so you paid off your debts, or your family helped out. That's incredible. So you're on the positive side of it.
Yeah.
How much can an artist expect to make in the Bay Area, or even in the New York metropolitan area? Is it a rewarding career that someone should consider, or is it a career that you would say, if you're not on it, this may not be the best financial career?
It is very difficult.
Okay.
For me, it's very difficult because right out of school, like you know what you learn, but you sort of don't know what you're learning, and you're treading a completely strange water. The first thing I would give the younger student who is about to graduate is get a job. You want your finance to be stable. If you're not stable, you're not creating. You can't create because you're constantly in distress about where is my money for the rent next month. So get a job, and being an artist, this career is a marathon. It's not about a sprint. You won't get to that point. You will see your fellow artists. Some will achieve the goal in 2 to 3 years, but that's very unlikely, right? Because you're growing, your work is growing, and you're maybe not as professional as this one, and maybe this one has the same skill as you, has more luck, knows more people, has a better people skill, and they get more job. They got fame immediately. Even though you work that really cool job, that's, for example, you work for Sony. You work for Sony, that's a great job. And after that, if you don't have consistency, like keep pushing you forward, you will still struggling after several months because you just simply don't have money. So it's about when is the point when you start freelancing. I mean, for my experience, I work for different companies for at least 4 to 6 years, try to save up and trying to, just like polish my portfolio and see if I'm ready. And I don't want to just drop my, quit my job and just like kind of just say, oh my God, I have no job. I have nothing to line up.
Yeah.
So always consider yourself, like the entrepreneur, do you have enough revenue to run your business full time? If the artists don't do it, still keep that job because stability and your mental health is so important to artists. So it is, for your question originally, it's very difficult because I started freelancing. I get my first job in 2017. I was still working. And right now, 7 years after, I only freelance, full-time freelancing since 2019.
Okay.
So I'm
right
quite,
before the pandemic.
Yeah, so I'm still quite new full-time freelancing, but before that, I have the jobs to actually support me throughout. So when I know I can have consistency of job quantity coming in, I can be more relaxed about what is next. And every year, I learn more strategy, how to promote more effectively, talk to people more effectively, how to get job quickly, shortly, and churn out finance really quick every month. And I think consistency will be the key.
Let me ask you, you mentioned networking to get jobs. Obviously, that's very important. You kill it on one project. The agency, the ad agency goes back to you. Maybe you're calling ad agencies and sending them your portfolios to get more referrals. But what about social media? How important has that been in getting clients and really getting your name out?
Yeah. I mean, for me, social media is always, for me, it's a tool. I don't really get, I'm not sure, I don't have a metrics to prove I get clients from social media, but for me, it's the way to put myself out there. And you can also for me, it's also a way to do research. If you follow several artists, I follow several artists on Instagram and they will post, I work for this client and thanks for this art director. And you sort of just remember, this art director is hiring illustrators, so potentially in the future they will hire you.
Smart.
So start doing research on.
Yeah, you're data mining almost.
That's right. Like I have a Google sheet just full of artists, full of a client.
Who worked where and what?
I worked before. I want to work in the future, and you trying to research on the internet to get their email, whether it's emailable or it's not reachable, but call them. It's all about cold calling, cold emailing, or how do you get a hold of that person to respond to you?
I've done cold calling. I hate it, and I think a lot of people hate it because it's a nasty hang up on the phone. People cold call me and I hang up, and and it's a weird boots on the ground sales that you have to learn at one point, right?
Yeah.
And it's a numbers game, and it's you got to like overcome rejection and not take it personally.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that worked for you for cold calling, or do you also hate it?
If I got a number, I would certainly call them.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of shameless that way, I'm not afraid of, if they hang out with me and say, okay, it's not the right time.
It's not personal.
Yeah, it's not personal. But mostly I do cold email. I got this person's, I'll reach out, type a short and sweet email, introduce myself, toss into several examples of my, my work samples, and just like, hey, this is my work. Would love to work with you, or you can keep me in mind. There's a suitable project. Would love to work with you, and if not, it's okay. We can talk later. So I do this every 3 months, every seasons. So nice. I will have new work, whether it's client work, personal work. I keep churning work out, and when that season, the email season come, I have a new stuff.
So you update your portfolio and resend what you've been working on to just refresh and keep them in the mind.
Yes.
So do you use like a constant contact to keep in contact? Excuse me. I'll say it again. Do you use a constant contact to keep in contact, or do you just simply individually personalize these emails?
I individually do everything.
I love that.
Yeah. It will be a type. I'll be, hey, for example, hey, Paul, nice to work with you last year, even though maybe he forgot me already. Nice to work with you in this project, sort of toss that reminder.
You're adding the human contact.
You keep that relationship warm before it gets cold. Is when you say, this relationship gets kind of lukewarm. I haven't talked to this person in 2 months, I better email him again just to say, hey, how's it going? I'm doing this. How's it going? And
When you're in a design project such as the wheat farming, by the way, on your burrito, do you get a wheat tortilla or flour?
flour.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. We're gonna edit that out because you had the wheat contract.
Oh, no, there's a war.
Oh no, this is a conflict of interest. All right, no, okay, good. Why is that? You like flour more? Or what?
It just, I don't know. It tastes better for me.
It tastes better. Got it. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
No, don't worry about it. I sometimes go wheat. It's okay. I go wheat, guys. So it's 1-1. It's all right.
Awesome.
But when you're in a project such as that one, like what's the work hours for an illustrator? Are you day and night working? Do you work better at night where no one's bothering you? Is it, your headphones on or?
So personally, my partner worked from home too, so I sort of just go with his schedule. So it's like woke up at 6:30, start working at 8.
So you're working.
I'm working full time.
Yeah,
I'm trying to discipline myself. If I don't do that, I will fall behind, and I'll like stay up late, procrastinated. So for me, it's like look at my partner. He started working. I started working. When he get up, I got off. I have 2-day weekend. Great. But if there's a special Monday or Tuesday deadline, I will work the Tuesday. Work the Saturday and Sunday and take Sunday off.
I love that. Even though you're working from home, you're still putting in the time and you're trying to set to that schedule. And I worked from home before myself as well. Yeah. And I, procrastinated and did this and that. And it's actually, it's a bad tunnel to go down.
It is.
It's a bad rabbit hole, we should say. Yeah. Because you start getting off your routine. You start being late. Yeah. So that's great that you're like, hey, sticking to that schedule and enjoying the weekend. Yeah. Together, which is incredible. I was just always thinking because of the creative side, and you're so probably creative that do you get like working from home? Do you have noise canceling headphones or
no? I normally just blast music out of my speakers.
Oh really? Okay. And he doesn't mind either.
He doesn't mind either.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's talk about beyond illustration. Okay. We talked a little bit about the Bay Area, how it's a great place to
wonderful
go eat, to go enjoy stuff and see nature. And there's quite a few areas here. But what about you? Hobbies? What do you do? You mentioned the weekend. You have time. What are some of the hobbies like outside of illustration? What do you enjoy?
I sew.
You're kidding me. Yes. What do you sew?
I sew toe back. I sew pouches. I'm starting to learn how to sew like patchwork wall art. I hand sew everything, not even machine. I don't have a sewing machine, but I just picked it up. It's like, you know what? My mom and my grandma used to sew all the time. And I'm just like, you know what? This is kind of cool. It reminded me of childhood. So one day I just bought a set of like needles and several, threads and just start sewing. And I have made like 3 toe bags, 4 pouches, and 2 pencil bags. And
do we see a business coming out of this in the future?
I don't think so. I think it's too time consuming and should I sell the pouch for like $100? I was like, nah, it's too much.
Yeah, you're doing it for fun. Yeah. My dad's a tailor, so I'm no stranger to sewing.
Way. Wow.
Yeah, he's like a local legend in the Richmond district. Awesome. He's been there 30 years.
I live in Richmond district.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
So Rada Fashion on 28th and Geary is where he had his place.
Nice.
But he closed it finally. He's 80, so he retired. He still does it, I think, for like clients. But, but yeah, I grew up around sewing. That's a trip. He tried to get me into it. I could not, for the life of me. First of all, I couldn't sit still that long, and then 2, I just don't. I don't know how he does it. And it's an interesting trade, right? Yeah. It's that's a cool hobby. What and I love the backstory because it brings you back to how you grew up. Yeah. So when you mentioned it, I was like, oh man, this is cool. As far as like artists out there, who would you say has inspired you, or do you get inspired by a different artist, or like who's out there that's like you go, wow, what's a piece of art that you would say is monumental to your development as an artist?
There is a comic book artist called Adrian Tomine, and he's a Japanese comic book artist, really big in the state. I'm a huge fan of his comics. I bought every single of his work.
Really?
It's not the way he tells stories, the way he portrayed character. Normally is himself and his life and his wife and his kids. how he grew up in the Bay Area in California and how he married his wife and moved to New York. All of this kind of internal struggle in this really funny and comedic way to portray his life. And it's always just so capturing for me, just like out of nowhere, just so relevant because his little artist shyness, introversion is sometimes resonate really hard for me, but also the way he is very specific about certain things just so resonate for me too. Just like I do this thing, certainly I put my pencil this way, and it's just really cool. So I highly recommend if you haven't seen his comic book, his name is Adrien Tomine, and his work is incredible. And another artist called Vincent Maher from France, and his work is so expressive and just so epic, and his character is the same, and the light and shadow of the techniques out of the world.
Really?
And he's really famous doing all type of commercial projects, editorial around the world too.
And editor, put some of those images in. We definitely got to check it out.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I would imagine. How does your desk look? Like, is it super organized? Is it like your OCD to some regard?
Yes, for me, it's very organized. I need to have my pencil here. Certain thing, every drawer I pull out, I know where things are.
Okay.
There's pins, there's stapler, there's tapes. That's for me. But some of my artist friends, their studios are very messy. It depends on how you work. Like going into an environment you enjoy working and be creative. So for me, just like everything so meticulous, great for me. Yeah.
And if it's not, it bothers you,
yes,
right?
I will put it to, yeah.
So when you go into another artist's studio, and not saying right or wrong, we've seen paint everywhere, this and that in some of these studios. Does that freak you out? Like,
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay,
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It's like, oh, that's so cool. Like, get to see different people's the way they work. Yeah, for me, that's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we've shared quite a lot in terms of advice for starting out as an artist, competing with AI, how to sell even the competition of AI, even if, for example, someone's saying, well, I can do this on AI. Well, it takes that aspect or disconnects the humanity from it. So that's a good sales point for anyone battling against a proposal such as that. We talked about why you have a passion for what you do and how meticulous you do it, and some of your mentors. We've talked about some misconceptions. We've talked about what it's like to be a freelancer in a very competitive, saturated market. I do want to ask, if you could go back to when you were a younger man and younger individual, a boy, etc., and give yourself a piece of advice, what would that advice be? And what would you share?
Don't be perfect.
Okay.
Perfection is, I have gone through so many years, just wanted to have a career and want to be successful. And that just really put my mental health state so down that I couldn't do anything. Then I struggle with, not medically like diagnosed depression, but it's very debilitating for me. So for me, just like, I need talk to so many people, read so many books, and just like to get rid of that thing. Just like perfectionism is so toxic for me, and I bet it's so toxic for everyone because
a lot of people.
It's impossible. There is no perfect art. There's no perfect project. There's no perfect amount of income to make you happy. Like I make myself happy. The people, the relationship I build makes me happy. The person I want to work with make me happy. It's all about me. It's not always about the outcome or the goal or certain things. So perfection is definitely the things I'm trying to get rid of. I would tell my younger self, don't be perfect. Just
go with the flow. I love that. I mean, I think just to add to that, I think with social media being so big and kids feeling depressed and comparing themselves and really struggling to keep up and, not accepted to this school, didn't get invited here, whatever it may be. And then they're constantly judging themselves. Yeah. It sounds like for you, because you're such a creative artist, perfection created a block even from moving forward or in the right direction. Yeah. And that's for everybody. I think you're right. Everyone, Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice for anyone listening out there. If you're trying to do anything, take one step at a time, control what you could control, right?
Yeah, because there's always better artists, there's always better product, there's always higher income. There's no way you can always just catch up
and get it all.
Yeah, no way. And that will just make unhappy even unhappier.
It'll drive you crazy.
Drive crazy, yes.
That's pretty great advice. I truly appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you coming out here, giving us a perspective of what it's like to be an artist in the Bay Area, a Bay Area artist, and also an artist that freelances and creates great work. Throughout this podcast, we're going to share your work. So that's going to be great. They'll roll it over. So editor, you better do that or you're in trouble. We're going to link everything that you, all of your portfolios and work in our videos.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And we appreciate you coming out. So Nien-Ken, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. This is so great.
Your first podcast.
Yes.
And hopefully many more. I think you should start a creative artist podcast.
Oh, God, no, I don't think I can do that. I'll be a freeze.
you would not. Yep, it's work.
Yeah.
So, guys, there you have it. If you need any freelance work or if you need any advice on engaging your viewer, your client, your brand identity really is what it's about. That's the difference between putting something out that takes 5 minutes in a little Canva design and truly going in depth, understanding the viewer, understanding the buyer, understanding the client's needs, desires, and the call to actions, and really putting something out there. Nien-Ken has done that for some pretty reputable businesses. He's come to share his experience here on the Ideal Hour. I hope he had fun. Sounds like he did. And I'm truly thankful for you coming out, Nien-Ken.
Thanks for having me, Simon.
It's been great. Thank you.